How's it going, everyone? My name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Chaos Head Noah. I don't really remember what happened in the last episode. It's actually been a little bit. I put this and my other playthroughs on a very brief hiatus to finish another one, and now I've kind of forgotten everything. I think we're looking back on what happened at the end of Chapter 6, so we've kind of moved on to Chapter 7. We're at the hospital for some reason, and I think we're just reminiscing. I think that is where we left off. But I don't really know what specifically happened here. I don't know if we even saved our sister. I don't really know what happened. And I guess we're going to find out. Also, fun fact, I had to load the game 3 times because the patch did not, unfortunately, the patch did not fix the issue, I guess I should say, in the game being poorly optimized with controllers, because if you have anything connected that is of a different input that isn't a controller necessarily, it will totally freak the game out. Like, it'll just constantly try to do things and it just sucks. My example is I'm a sim racer, so I have, those types of peripherals connected. But even my pedals, I cannot have those connected. So fun little fact there. It took 3 attempts, but third time's the charm. We're back at it. Back then, I had given up on saving Nanami. I had grabbed onto Shogun's wheelchair, but there had been no response. It collapsed in a heap, and when I looked again, all I'd been holding was Darth Spider's helmet. Oh, that's right. Count Darth Spider, the very embodiment of evil in Spark Wars. This is obviously a huge-ass Star Wars reference. His black-clad appearance was famous even in Japan. But I would have never thought that Shogun would cosplay as him, so my anger had been overridden by raw confusion. After that, I had stood up and looked at the wheelchair, but there had been no one in it. Only a black hood draped over the back of it. That was another part of Darth Spider's costume. I'd then examined my surroundings one more time, but there had been no one there. I had been the only one on that pitch-black rooftop. Oh, Jesus Christ. That kind of spooked me there. Suddenly, the press then came flooding in all at once. They had surrounded me with lights, cameras, and microphones, and they are loud. I had no room to breathe. There had been more than 10 of them in total. I had been so overwhelmed by it all that my terror simply grew and grew. I'd wanted to run away, but I couldn't move a muscle. I had been a total mess.
Nishijo君、帽子はどうなっちゃったのかな？
結局ニュージェネの犯人は誰なのかわからないということですか？
そのダーススパイダーのヘルメットは何か超能力と関係あるのかな？
西条さん、答えてくれませんか？これで終わりなんて言うなら電波ジャックですよ。
That's okay.
結局何がしたかったんです？ニュージェネに便乗した売名行為ですか？不謹慎だと思わないんですか？
Can I turn that down? I've noticed that the sounds are a little bit louder than I remember them being. Can I turn that down? Background music is already pretty low for reasons, but I can try to turn down the sound effects. Just a wee bit. I don't know if that is even a sound effect. I think it helped. Very slightly.
ユーリ・ブライトマンさんとは最近話したかな？どんなこと話した？
地震とニュージェネについて何か関係あると思いますか？
Oh, of course.
その手に持っている美少女フィギュアは何らかの儀式的なアイテムと考えていいんですか？
このような行動を取ったことにはアニメやゲームの影響はあったのかな？
西条さん、
西条君。
The lighting pointed at me had been incredibly hot. It felt as if my skin was being singed by the sun during the hottest part of the summer. The flood of people from the media made me feel lightheaded. My field of vision had been spinning around in circles. I'd been cornered. I'd been panicking. I'd been unable to breathe. I had grasped my head. I can't see anything. I don't want to see anything. I can't hear anything. I don't want to hear anything. I can't feel anything. I don't want to feel anything.
やめてくれ！
At the very same moment I'd screamed, like a computer that had short-circuited my consciousness had severed. Well, we did not get our D-sword, unfortunately. I thought something would have happened there that would at least get us our D-sword, but nope. That was exactly what happened. I'd lost consciousness. And then, how had I ended up here at this hospital? I couldn't remember. At the very least, I didn't think I'd come on my own, so maybe I'd been brought to the hospital by an ambulance? Hazuki-san was writing something on the clipboard that she was holding. She must have had a slip of paper clipped onto it. Was she writing about my condition? I checked what time it was via the simplistic watch wrapped around her wrist. It was a little after 6 in the morning. I had slept for a really long time. Oh boy. Now it's been a while since we've had a bad delusion. Let's have a bad delusion here. Regardless, why had I been brought here? If Hazuki-san was here, then that meant this was my normal hospital. It wasn't like me being brought into a general hospital was particularly weird, but something still didn't feel right. Why was Hazuki-san coming to check on me? That question really bothered me. Yeah, there's obviously something going on with her. I mean, Hazuki-san was a psychiatric nurse. If Hazuki-san was coming to check on me, didn't that mean that the room I was in was also used by the psychiatric patients? Perhaps. That is a pretty good deduction to make.
警察の人が後でお話を聞きたいそうですよ。
Hazuki's gentle tone turned cold. What the fuck? Without looking at me, she continued writing something on a piece of paper attached to a clipboard.
妹さんを殺すなんてひどい人ですね。
Her mouth isn't moving properly. Why is that happening, game? What did she say? Yeah, wait, hold on. I don't even know what she just said. Oh, that's what she said. See, I was too distracted by her fucking mouth not moving properly.
あなたの家で見つか
Yeah,
った
look at
そうで
that.
すよ。
That's weird.
死体。
What?
妹さんの手首を切り落として持ち歩いていたなんてまともじゃないわ。
僕は殺してない。
そう主張しているらしいですね。意味不明なことばかり言ってて話にならないって刑事さんがぼやいてました。心神喪失で無罪っていうのを狙ってるんですか？でもみんな思ってますよ。あなたが殺したんだって。
My chest squeezed tightly, and I began to hallucinate that everything before my eyes had gone completely black. I was starting to doubt myself. Had I killed Nanami? No, that couldn't be true.
この人殺し。
She had been writing something, but suddenly Hazuki's hand stopped. She then slowly turned the clipboard toward me. Yeah, I know. I had a good idea of what was written on that paper. That was a fun little delusion. Suddenly I realized I was sitting in the same bed in the same hospital room. I wasn't sure why the sheet I'd just ripped off of me was still on me. Hazuki-san, who had been standing right beside the bed, had disappeared before I could even blink. Wiping the greasy sweat off my forehead, I looked around the hospital room once again. After a couple knocks, Hazuki-san entered the room, and her eyes widened slightly upon seeing me. We kinda had a little glance into the future again.
あら、西條さん、目が覚めたんですね。
Why is her mouth not moving? A gentle smile accompanied her as she said that. I stiffened up and then looked away.
お体の調子はどうですか？
Hazuki-san held out a thermometer to me so naturally. I couldn't help but take it.
体温を測ってくださいね。
As I took the thermometer from her, I gulped. It's the same. The exact thing from before was repeating. It was as if Hazuki-san had just walked into the hospital room for the first time. I nervously reached for the thermometer, in my underarm. I was sure I had put a thermometer in there just a minute ago, and yet there was nothing there. The thermometer had disappeared, which meant that what I had seen earlier really had been a delusion. The tension in my body disappeared, but that didn't mean that the state of mind was any better, nor that I felt anywhere close to relieved.
昨日ご家族がお見えになっていたんですけど、西条さんの意識が戻らないので、日付が変わる頃にお帰りになりました。今日は診察時間が始まる頃にお母様が来るそうですよ。
I nodded in response, not having the energy to say anything back. Mom, I'm sorry for being such a disgrace. I'm an embarrassment to Japan. No, to the entire world. The entire thing had been televised, meaning it had already spread to the entire country. I was sure my shameful behavior had been uploaded to MewTube as well. I had no idea why I had been made into the amazing Esper boy. And it didn't make any sense to broadcast my every move, and on the day of a huge earthquake no less, when I was nothing but a boring otaku freak. It wasn't normal. Because of that, I couldn't help but think that everyone from back then was being mind-controlled by Shogun. But regardless of whether or not that was true, I'd still publicly humiliated myself. It wasn't something I'd escape after enduring a quick shitstorm online that'd be forgotten about in a week. Was this it for me? Would I no longer be able to live in peace, excuse me? Suddenly, Nanami's face appeared in the back of my mind. I bit down on my lip and hugged my knees. Even if that was no longer attainable, as long as I could save Nanami, none of it would matter. Even if people from all over the world snickered at me and called me a pathetic loser for the rest of my life, it would make no difference to me. But I couldn't save her. I couldn't even do that much.
Nana.
Tears began to fall from my eyes.
どうしました？どこか痛みます？
Shaking my head over and over, I kept on crying. Nanami was dead. Nanami was dead and she was never coming back. Well, we don't know that yet. It was all my fault. All my fault. All my fault. All my fault. Because of how worthless I was. Because of how much of a fucking loser I was. Nanami was dead. Back on the rooftop, I'd given up so easily on obtaining the D-Sword. I had Saraton's seductive voice in my ear, but that was just my pathetic self pretending to be someone else. I was the one who'd made the decision. I already knew that, but I'd made myself look like a pitiful victim. I'd chosen to sacrifice Nanami so that I would survive. I hated myself, how fucking pathetic I was. If only I'd tried just a little bit harder. I told myself that I'd given up of my own volition, but now that it was all over, I regretted every single thing I'd done on that rooftop. I was absolutely disgusted with myself. She was gone. Nothing could save her now, and yet, even still, I couldn't help but think that if I could just go back to that rooftop, and I just tried a little bit harder. But I knew that even if I actually could go back, I would just give up all over again, finding some other excuse to get me out of it. That was just who I was. A completely useless, irredeemable piece of shit. Yeah, you got that right, brother.
Nanami. ごめん。Nanami.
Hazuki-san rubbed my back in an attempt to comfort me. I was a useless sack of shit to the very end. I was even causing problems for nurses that had nothing to do with me. The tears refused to stop.
何か
There's her mouth
後
moving.
悔していることがあるんですね。
I was gonna say, like, I wasn't seeing shit. But then again, to be truthful with you guys, everything doesn't look all that beautiful to me on my display because it's like a 1080p picture that's stretched to 1440p, but I'm also recording it in 1080p to upscale it in post through, I don't know. I always bump everything up to 1440 so YouTube would take care of that a lot better. But the point is everything looks very pixelated to me. And so maybe her mouth was moving and I just didn't see it. But I was getting worried there. I thought that something was fucked up.
でもきっと妹さんも許してくれますよ。
Huh? how did she know that Nanami was my sister? Even that aside, the formulaic consolation that she was giving me was the last thing I needed right now. I'm sorry, Hazuki-san, but no one else can understand how I feel. I hated myself, I was pathetic, and I did nothing but take advantage of everyone else, and only ever thought about myself. The world would be better off without me. Maybe I should just end it all.
昨日もしきりに西条さんのことを心配していましたよ。
Ayo?
とても可愛らしい妹さんですね。
What was she talking about?
七海は妹は死にました。
She had been kidnapped by Shogun. Her hand had been cut off, and then she'd been imprisoned somewhere. And in the end, she died all alone and afraid. When I imagined it, it felt like my heart was being torn into dozens of tiny pieces.
そうなんですか？ごめんなさい。勘違いしてしまって。
All my life, I thought that Nanami was annoying, although we had been siblings for 16 years. Even though she'd called me a jerk more times than I could count, she was always worried about me. The reason why she'd always nagged me so much was because she'd been trying to help me break free from my toxic lifestyle. Whenever she'd brought me food from her parents' house, she didn't just give it to me and leave, she'd always try to share it with me. Normally, if a girl her age had an otaku freak for a brother, they'd never associate with him. And while the things she'd said didn't make her the easiest person to be around, she would still talk to me, and she would listen too. Whenever I'd been at school, she never avoided me. No, she would actually approach me. No matter what, Nanami had always treated me, a vile otaku freak virgin, like her brother. Like a human being. Her mere existence had helped me more than I ever knew. But realizing that did me no good now. It was too late.
でも、だとしたら、鬼ってどういう意味なのかしら？
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's alive. Like, I think we have the wrong idea here. Huh? I looked up, unable to properly comprehend what I had just heard. As my eyes were blurry with tears, I couldn't see Hazuki-san's face properly. What did she just said?
眠ってる西条さんを、鬼と何度も呼んでいたから、その印象が強くて。
There was only one person who called me that.
それ本当ですか？
Vaulting out of my bed, I pressed Hazuki-san for an answer.
はい、何がです？
七海が妹が七海がここに来てたんですか？
いえ、はっきりお名前を聞いたわけでは。
僕のこと鬼って呼んでたんですね。
ええ。
七海は今どこに？
ですから、昨日はお帰りになりましたけど、西条さんのお母様と一緒に。
怪我とかしてませんでしたか？
はい。いえ、特には。
Yeah, I really don't think that was her hand. I think her phone was taken and they got somebody's hand and that bracelet and just made it look like it was hers in order to get us up there and to try and get us to get that D sword. Someone's trying to orchestrate some shit here. Come on, it's so obvious.
元気だったんですね。
はい。いえ、七海さんかどうかはわかりませんけど、昨日いらしていた女の子は元気そうでしたよ。
Nanami was alive. From everything Hazuki-san had said, it had to have been true. I sat down on the bed, utterly dazed. But how? Shogun had said that he wouldn't give Nanami back to me until I completed his quest. Had he just released her out of pity? Or had Nanami escaped on her own? But then, how would that explain the hand that had been sent to me? According to Hazuki-san, Nanami hadn't even been injured. Don't show the hand, please.
君の家に送ったあの手首は別人のものかもしれないよ。
What he'd said, it hadn't been a lie. He'd played me. I'd been dancing right to his tune. Shogun had deceived me. No, that didn't matter right now. If that even was Shogun. I see, so that was it. It was all coming together. Nanami had never been kidnapped at all. Back when I had been at O-Front trying desperately to grab the D sword, Nanami must have been relaxing back at home reading manga, or going out to karaoke with her friends so she could show off her shitty singing voice, or doing whatever else she liked to do. I was crying, but I couldn't help but laugh.
Nishijo-san?
将軍にまんまと騙された。なんという壮大な釣りだよ。
I mean, come on, we should have seen it coming. She was alive. Nanami was alive. I could see that bratty ass face of hers again. I could hear that obnoxious, shrill voice of hers again. You know what? This could all be like a farce, to be totally real with you guys. We could yet again be baited into thinking that she is safe when maybe she's not. The mere thought was enough to bring me a deep sense of relief and an intense joy that rose from the bottom of my heart.
よかった。
I couldn't stop crying, but the tears weren't the tears of regret that I'd been crying earlier.
よかった。
I was an utterly useless pile of shit, but I couldn't help it. The day before, I'd given up without being able to do anything. But even so, as long as Nanami was alive, I didn't wish for anything else. The whole world could mock me until the end of time for all I cared. I was overjoyed. Thank God she was safe. Okay, I thought she was going to say something there. Was quite worried, but we good. Yet another meeting had been called in the main conference room of the Shibuya Police Department, joining one of the multiple others that had been held today. The exhausted, fed-up detectives all wondered how many more hours worth of unproductive meetings they would be forced to sit through. Matsunaga, was about to start hearing the reports from each investigator when suddenly, Bon hesitantly stood up and raised his hand.
ちょっといいですかね。
なんだね。
Inquisitive eyes and expressions landed on Bon, not just from Matsunaga, but from Suwa and the detective sitting next to him as well. Bon smiled his usual flippant smile, quickly bowed his head, and then looked around the room.
先日インターネット上に投稿されたいわゆる集団ダイブの映像についてなんですが、実はちょっとした発見をしまして。
え？
The surprise on Sua's face was evident. In all likelihood, he was surprised. After all, Bon had examined the video without saying a word to him. It was not because he wanted to keep it a secret from him, however. No.
バン警部補。君は確か貼り付けの捜査担当だったはずだが。
That's not what it's called. I don't know if you guys heard my little rambles, but I'm not going to be referring to those cases by these made-up names or whatever here. I don't care if they're making more sense as they are now, but that is fucking stupid to read. It's the crucified case or whatever it was.
なぜ集団ダイブについて調べている？
Actually, going back to that rant, I'll probably go back to my Chaos Child playthrough that I did a few years ago and just get the names from there because they were all stated at one point, I think. And then I'll just have them on hand. I don't know. They're just, they seem like the better ones to go for, personally. But to each their own. This was the reason. Bon had disregarded the orders he had been given by his boss, the head of the investigation team. If Bon had involved Suwa, a promising new detective, his partner would have inevitably been harshly rebuked by their boss, and Bon wanted to avoid this.
まあ、とりあえず見てくださいって。
With a chuckle, Bon took out 2 enlarged photos from a file that he held in his hand. And attached them to the blackboard with magnets.
これはどっちも集団ダイブの現場となったコーネリアスタワー屋上の写真です。
Methinks we're missing something here. I just don't know what.
右の写真は例のミュウツベ投稿映像から抜き出したもの。左のは昨日の夜私がタワー屋上に行って撮ってきたものになります。何か違いに気づきませんか？
あ、
The entire conference room began to stir.
背景がね、違うんです。投稿映像のカメラは北東へ向かってる。5人が転落したのが北東だったから間違いない。で、映像では3分29秒から約15秒間カメラが左右へ大きく触れるんですが、その時に東に向いた時の映像がこの右側の写真なわけです。コーネリアスタワーの東、つまり六本木方面ですね。東京タワーが夜景の中にしっかり映ってる。赤いから目立ちますね。でもね、もう一つよく目立つものが映ってないんですよ。
Makes me think that whoever is orchestrating all this shit, they made a dire mistake of some sort. Bond's eyes narrowed as he combed his beard with his fingers, and then a wry smile appeared on his lips.
六本木ビルズですよ。
It was true. The lights of Roppongi Bills could not be seen in the photo he had taken from the uploaded video. But in the photo Bond had taken the day prior, the lights of Roppongi Bill's many windows were clearly visible along with Tokyo Tower. Yeah, you can see lights and buildings from the background that aren't visible because the building is there. It's as if it was just taken out and they either photoshopped or quite literally got the buildings that are there plastered in like a separate layer, which isn't easy.
で、たまたま見つけたんですが、コーネリアスタワーのホテルロビーにタワー完成当時のパネルが展示してありましてね。そのパネルの一つがこれ。
Bond retrieved a new photo from the file and pinned it in next to the previous two. It was also a picture of the Roppongi area taken from the rooftop of the tower, but it was not a picture taken at night, it was one taken at day.
六本木ビルズが映ってますよね。建設中ですが。
The commotion in the conference room grew even louder. Matsunaga, meanwhile, remained silent as he stared at the photo with a stern expression.
コーネリアスタワーの完成は2001年。六本木ビルズの完成は2003年。タワー完成当時の写真では当然ながら六本木ビルズは建設中でまだ高さもほとんどない。だが集団ダイブが起きたのは今年2008年で映ってなきゃおかしいですよね。六本木ビルズ。ちなみに投稿映像に細工された形跡はなかった。
Okay, but we don't know that though. I mean, people can hide really good video editing here and there, you know? They can get away with it. And it's not like they have the original file that shows that it was modified. Having seemingly lost patience with the detective, Matsunaga urged him onward discontentedly.
非常に言いにくいんですが。
まさか先輩、この映像が撮られたのは2003年以前、つまり5年以上前って言いたいんですか？
Dang it, Suwa. Bond's shoulders slumped dejectedly. The young detective's keen insight was brilliant. Suwa had said exactly what Bond had intended to say. However, having said it out loud in such a straightforward manner only made the claim appear all the more dubious. Bond's careful planning on how to articulate his points had all been for nothing.
バカバカしい。小説の読みすぎではないがね。映像に映っている被害者5人の顔は一致しているんだ。あれが5年前のもののはずがない。そんなつまらないことを調べている暇があったら聞き込みの一つでもしたらどうだ。 警部補。
あ
今のは聞かなかったことにする。それと後で話があるから会議が終わったら残りたまえ。
God damn it. I truly feel like he was onto something here. After letting out a short sigh, Bond gave up and sat back down. Well, it's not like I expected him to believe me. Bitter and unwilling to accept defeat, Bond muttered that inside his head before returning to listlessly fanning his face with his handheld fan. And yet, despite all the work he had done, if one were to ask what the absence of Roppongi bills in the video signified, Bond would be unable to answer. Yeah, I have no fucking idea as well. I mean, sure, delusions and all that, yeehaw, we can make a lot of impossible things possible, but why that building? It had to have been connected with whatever was going on in order to make those people jump out, or jump off the rooftop, right? Like, it had to have been. Why, you know, do that in the first place? Why get rid of that building? After I'd found out that Nanami was alive, the doctor came to me and asked me a few simple questions. They wanted to make sure whether or not I was well enough to leave. I answered the questions to the best of my ability and then opted to leave the hospital before my mom came back. After that disgraceful behavior I had shown off in front of the entire country, how was I supposed to face my family now? And if Nanami were to come back, I knew that I'd be so happy I'd immediately burst into tears all over again. And then since she wouldn't know why I was crying, Nanami would take it seriously and start yelling at me not to worry about her, probably while calling me an idiot too. When I thought about that, I nearly fainted from the sheer embarrassment, and so instead of letting that happen, I decided to employ a strategic retreat. Probably for the best. A nurse brought in the most disgusting breakfast all the time, and after chipping away at it slightly, I snuck out of the hospital room. I made my way down to the first floor and then to the lobby. The clinic hadn't opened yet, so the lobby that was usually packed with old people was completely deserted. I confidently walked toward the front entrance. Luckily for me, the automatic door opened, giving me free rein to exit the building. Well, that was easy. The hospital staff might have gotten angry with me for leaving without asking them first, but I had to stay away from the hospital until everything had calmed down. As for the medical fees, I left my mom a note telling her to go ahead and pay for it, so it should be fine. What? No, that's... whatever. Despite the fact that I had stayed overnight at the hospital, I wasn't exhibiting any actual symptoms, and my mental state was doing much better than after I had learned that Nanami was alive. Making sure to keep an eye out for any ambushes by Shogun or Yua, I quickly made my way back to my base. Yeah, we got a hand waiting for us there. Or maybe another gift. I'd made it back. My mental state had done a complete 180 since I'd been at my base. Of course, I was feeling a lot better now. If only I could have let my past self know that. You let yourself get... God damn it, what the fuck is this shit? There's no reason for you to get so riled up, dude. Nanami's fine. Or something along those lines. Thinking back on it, yesterday really had been a living hell. Everything had just gone to shit. I'd gotten a weird phone call in the morning, and then there'd been that earthquake. Oh yeah, it was a really long day. Longer for me because, well, I took that little hiatus. Then the data on my hard drive had disappeared. Then I had to witness ISA trying to off herself right in front of me. Then I'd gotten an email from Shogun. Then he sent me a severed hand. A severed goddamn hand. My mood plummeted in an instant. With a gulp, I turned my attention to the fridge. What? Did we put it in there? That's where the hand is. Before I'd left yesterday, I decided in my maniacal state to just put the hand in the fridge for the time being. If I'd left it out somewhere, it could have started rotting. The smell of blood was also way too strong for me. There were all sorts of sci-fi, anime, and movies where, as long as they remained frozen, people could stay in a state of suspended animation for hundreds of years. I don't know about that. So that was pretty much what I was going for. I thought that if I could keep Nanami's arm fresh, she might have been able to get it surgically reconnected once she was back home safe. But if that wasn't Nanami's hand, then who the hell did it belong to? And how would that explain the cell phone and the bangle? If I wasn't missing something, then it had to belong to Nanami. When I'd called her, it had rung on her cell phone, or the cell phone held in the hand. Or maybe it had been all just a part of Shogun's trap. Was it even possible to make such a perfect replica of Nanami's arm?
もう一度確かめてみるべきかも。
In truth, I really didn't want to. The entire hand thing grossed me out. Just thinking about it made me want to puke, even if it did belong to Nanami. But that didn't mean I could just keep it in my fridge forever. Not even my supply of cola stayed that cold in it. I considered asking the police to come take it, but then I realized that they just suspected me of being the NewGen culprit. Even more than they already did, that is. It would practically be suicide to dial 110 and go, "Hello, yes, please come and take this person's severed hand off my hands, thank you." What should I do? Should I just throw it away? But supposing it was Nanami's arm, it really didn't sound like a good idea to throw it away. Hell, were you even allowed to throw away human hands like that? Did they constitute a burnable or not? Oh my god, as burnable or not burnable trash? I don't know, actually. I tore at my hair. There was no point continuing to torture myself over it. I'd just go ahead and check one more time that the bangle was on her wrist and that she was holding her cell phone. Was it Nanami's or was it someone else's? That was the question I hoped to answer. Oh yeehaw. I stood in front of the refrigerator and gripped the handle. I closed my eyes, and then I took 1, then 2, and then 3 deep breaths. Oh, hey, we have those figures here in the top left. Yeah, I feel like one of them is definitely Rika. I feel like I should know a few of these others. I don't know if they're, like, direct cameos or references, I mean, or if, like, they're slightly tweaked to act more like a reference. I don't know. I really don't. Either way, I mean, they look pretty damn detailed. Unsurprisingly, the temptation to just call Rimi and ask her to do it for me crept up into my mind, but I quickly shook it away. No matter how good of an ally Rimi was to me, there was no way she wouldn't freak out upon finding someone's hand in my fridge. And then if I managed to fuck up the explanation, she'd fall out of love with me and then turn me into the police. I was gonna have to do this on my own somehow. I clenched my teeth, 2 more deep breaths, and then I yanked on the handle with all my might. What do we got? We got oranges. Hey, you know, at least we're trying to be a little bit more healthy. It was empty, entirely empty. I thought for sure that I'd put the hand in there yesterday. It had been wrapped in aluminum foil. It should have been on the top shelf. And yet, there was no sign of it. I mean, we've been away from the base for like 2 days almost, so anybody could have come in here and taken it back. All that was there were a few bottles of cola and a bunch of rotten clementines. Oh, they're not even oranges. Damn, that sucks.
消えた。なんで?
Just like that, it was completely gone. I crouched down and looked further into the refrigerator, but of course it still wasn't there. There wasn't much in there to begin with, so it was already practically empty. There's no way I could have missed it.
昨日ここに入れたよな。
Or maybe I just assumed that, and in reality, I just left it somewhere. I closed the fridge door and then looked around my trash-filled room. Oh yeah, it'll be really easy to find something here, huh? The large cardboard box with the hand inside of it. What had I done with it? I felt like I tossed it into the corner of my room or something, but either way, my memory of last night was very unclear. More things had happened yesterday than my poor brain could handle, and everything was made all the more brutal due to the utter chaos of it all. Calm down, just calm down. Now get your thoughts together. Think of why it might have disappeared. I mean, again, we weren't here for a while, so anyone could have waltzed in. I booted up the word processor on my PC and wrote down all the possibilities I could think of. Okay, so my mistake, I put it somewhere else in my room. I myself took it outside yesterday and threw it away somewhere. Shogun took it back. 3 is probably the the one to go for here. The police searched my house and confiscated it. The mass media broke in and stole it. The hand never existed in the first place. I think number 6 is also a possibility. Given the idea of delusions. My base had been unlocked ever since yesterday. So if someone really wanted to, they could have come right in and taken it without much trouble. That would also be consistent with how Shogun had been able to put that hand in my room in the first place. Or maybe it was number 2. My memory of when I'd left my base to go to O-Front was unclear. The feeling that I had had to save Nanami, seeing the severed hand, and how terrified I was of Shogun, all of those emotions swirled around me, invading each and every corner of my mind, and I couldn't calm down at all. Maybe I had just left my base and tossed the hand in a dumpster somewhere without knowing it. Or maybe the whole hand thing in general had just been a delusion, and it didn't actually exist at all. Well, we also learned that, the whole projection deal, a form of mind control, we've seen a little bit of that, but also projecting delusions. We could have easily had our mind controlled. A delusion literally popped into our mind. So something wasn't there, something we didn't bring up as a delusion, but somebody else actually popped up as a delusion. So no one's really missing a hand. But when I went to check my email, I found that the one I'd gotten from Shogun yesterday did in fact exist. And in that email, he clearly stated that the hand was a present. Not to mention that Shogun himself had talked about it yesterday. I just couldn't believe that had been just a delusion. Okay, then what about the possibility that the police or the media took it? Those people looked at otaku freaks like we were no better than shit smeared on the bottom of their shoes. So it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, but there's no indication of people going around and taking shit other than that one thing being gone. I don't think that's the case. After everything that happened yesterday, I was afraid to look at the internet. And yet in the end, I couldn't help myself, so I clicked open my browser. First, I checked the news section of Taboo, as well as the news sites I would typically go to. Aha. Is the radio wave hijacking Esper just a boy who cried wolf? Yeah, maybe. And sure enough, there were articles upon articles about the uproar yesterday at Scramble Crossing. I guess we can read this. The ESP show held by the New Generation boy ended in the worst possible way. In response to the seismic intensity 5 earthquake that struck at noon on October 27th, several news stations, including MHK, BTS, and TV Sunset, broadcasted breaking news reports. Today TV and Fujisun TV, meanwhile, began broadcasting simultaneous coverage of both the earthquake and the Esper show starting at 9 p.m. Following this, the two stations were immediately flooded with call after call protesting this decision. When faced with the disappointing end to the show, the nearly 5,000 fans, that had crowded in front of Shibuya Station all began to boo loudly for over an hour, with some fans even fighting among themselves. The situation resulted in 13 separate arrests. Jesus. The commotion began with a prank email sent by a boy, hereby referred to as N, living in Shibuya Ward. At first, news stations were skeptical of the email, which claimed that the boy was a clairvoyant Esper who could see the culprit behind the New Generation madness, the popular name for a series of brutal incidents taking place in Shibuya. However, when American psychic detective Yuri Brightman, age 43, informed Today TV and Fujisun TV that he would be willing to become the boy's legal guardian, both stations immediately took him at his word, or so the story goes. The ratings for both Today TV and Fujisun Today were extraordinary, with the highest simultaneous viewership exceeding 40%. These were astonishing figures, surpassing even that of Kohaku ringing in the new year. Although these figures may only be for the simultaneous broadcast with the earthquake report, the broadcast was obviously a huge success in terms of viewership. However, the boy starring in the show, N, did not turn out to be an Esper. He repeatedly riled up the audience by motioning that he was going to jump off the building, but his performance did not extend beyond that. Undeterred, the media companies dared to go up the rooftop to report on the situation and attempt to get a comment about the NewGen incidents, but they were unsuccessful. The boy was found collapsed on the rooftop holding a moe figure, a moe anime figure, and a costume from a popular Hollywood film. According to otaku culture expert Professor Hashiba Yoshiro of Meisei University, there has been a rapid increase in the number of young people who dream of becoming heroes, but in the pursuit of this dream, act with no regard to the world around them. Under the influence of anime, video games, and other similarly damaging media, they have lost the ability to distinguish between fantasy and reality. This is likely what is causing them to act in such a way. They require psychological care. I hadn't sent any emails to the media. That is true. So we were set up here. I'd never even seen Yuri Brightman's show, let alone met him. So what the hell? Was this all just part of Shogun's plan like I'd originally thought? What was his ultimate goal here? He'd said something about it being a quest or something. Okay, then what was the point of having the mass media televise me trying to get my hands on a sword? I didn't get it. What was Shogun trying to accomplish? He'd even released Nanami alive. Supposedly. I saw a link on the side there that said girls with big tits. I followed the links to various articles, but even after reading through all of them, not a single one of them mentioned Shogun. There had been practically no gap at all between when I tackled Shogun and when the media had come bursting onto the rooftop. Even if Shogun had managed to escape during that window, the media would have seen him. And not only that, but Shogun was supposed to be stuck in a wheelchair. He was supposed to be paralyzed. So there was absolutely no way he would have been able to escape the rooftop in such a limited time frame. It is kind of sus. I went on to check at channel. And to no one's surprise, an enormous shitstorm was going on. My real name was being plastered everywhere. Okay, so what do we got? Let's see. The uniform that Nishijo dumbass was rocking is from Suume, isn't it? Are there any Suume students in this thread right now? That guy is a terminal fucktard. Okay, that is not good language to use, but okay. Do us all a favor and off yourself, you piece of human trash. LMAO. Nishijo, you need to chill the fuck out. Fuck's sake. It'll be your fault if otaku start getting beat up again. I think they already are. Alright, they're talking about Seraton. I'm not seeing anything here. Sarah would be like, Nishijo, you big dum-dum. Time for me to kick your fat butt with my awakened form rocket bot. God damn it. Everyone was just saying whatever the hell they wanted to. They weren't even considering how I felt as they talked all this shit about me. Having that channel as your enemy was a scary thing. And it was all Shogun's fault I was in this mess. I was wondering if anybody had leaked any sensitive information onto that channel, the stuff that couldn't be aired on TV, but I couldn't find anything that fit the criteria. I hadn't been alone on that rooftop. There had been one more person, and yet not a shred of information had come out about them, excuse me. It was almost like the being known as Shogun had never been there in the first place. And I think that's the case here. I think that's actually what's going on. We were alone up there. Maybe the Shogun that appeared on the rooftop was just an illusion. Maybe, even if I know for a fact that he exists, there's a possibility that the Shogun I saw at O-Front was just a delusion that I created. Again, maybe a delusion here. Why are we panning? Maybe a delusion that was kind of broadcasted towards us. I don't know. There were so many things happening that shouldn't have been possible in real life. It was more like a video game at this point. Like, there were two worlds, one where Nanami was alive and one where she was dead. And the two options were running parallel to one another, meaning I got to choose between them, just like a choice that you'd find in an eroge. The future was divided into countless different branches. And what made me different from normal people was that I could simulate what story events might occur using my delusions, and I was in the middle of simulating the route that would lead to the bad ending. Like one where Nanami died, or one where ISA jumped to her death, or one where I fell off O-Front and died. Well, yeah, that did happen. In other words, for some reason, all these things that you would normally find in the bad ending route could be coming after me. Almost like they were hunting me down due to a trap I myself had set. maybe I just had the desire to leave behind my boring, uneventful life and go to a more exciting world like one from a game. And because of that, I'd been unconsciously showing myself what that would look like. That couldn't be it. Actually, I mean, that could have some credibility with the power of delusions here. And we've mistakenly pulled out some shit out of nowhere before. So, I mean, we're the main character here. We have to have incredible power. I didn't have any desires even remotely like that. You might, like innately, you might deep down have some shit like that going on. Like, it's very possible. Or at the very least, I would never want to make myself go through anything that'd make me feel sad or scared, simulation or not.
っていうか、どれだけ想像力豊かなんだよ。
What I'd been considering was nothing more than some childish bullshit delusion I'd come up with without thinking. Hello, roof or ceiling, whatever you want to call this. I sighed, leaned back in my chair, and looked up at the ceiling with a blank stare on my face. Reality isn't set in stone. Anything and everything just felt fake. The world I was living in was completely hollow. Yeah. It'd be like that sometimes, my friend. Ooh. 6th case. Hey, yo, she found dead, Shibuya River, Shibuya Ward, October 28th. The woman died of consuming flesh, own right hand. Oh, shit. Well, there we go. There we go.
8時頃、渋谷区の渋谷川で女性の変死体が発見されました。
Fantastic. All right. Great place to end this off. All right. Well, we've got our 6th case. Can't wait to figure out what the actual name of that was. Not whatever the game is going to be telling me here. But yeah, I guess somebody did lose their hand. All right. Well, that means that maybe, just maybe, there was physically a hand in the base and it was just taken at some point. Again, very likely it could have happened because first off, the hand was placed there. That means that, yeah, there is reasonable access for anyone to get in there. And that means during the time that we were out, definitely access for somebody to get it out of there. And I don't know what the deal was with the bracelet or the phone. Who the fuck knows? The thing is, we have not come across Nanami, so we can't even confirm that she's alive. We can only trust what that nurse had told us. I don't know, man. There's so much confusing shit going on. I was told whenever I started recording this again 2 episodes ago that like it's just a fucking roller coaster from here, and yeah, I have absolutely no idea what's going on. I can predict all I want, but I'm probably wrong. I'm probably wrong in every degree, and that's what I like. Thank you all for watching this episode. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that fancy jazz, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.